Now, the increase in logistic price rates has currently been on the rise due to COVID-19 pandemic. Reports indicate that this came as a result of increasing prices of fuel across the globe and increase in the logistic price rates. Shipping and logistic executives believe the prices of logistics and transportation costs have increased in 2022.
Kenneth Ayebare says the logistics rates started hiking in 2019 when the COVID-19 hit the globe and the supply chain of empty boxes began to get disrupted.
The increase in logistics, basically, rates started hiking in 2019 when there was the COVID surge, and the supply chain of empty boxes started being interrupted. Now,
they had around 180 million containers at the end of 2019, and that the containers were supposed to be rotating in the whole world, where people were calling in for shipping orders, and most of them were stuck and were needed in China. Yet China was the first to close, which produced 28.7% and was statistics by 2018.
In around end of 2019, and all the containers are supposed to be rotating within the whole world, where people are calling in for shipping orders. So when COVID came in, most of them were stuck in the wrong places at the right time. When they are needed in China, China was the first to close, which produces about 28.7% of all the world's products. Those are statistics by 2018, end of 2018.
He further says China produces 28% of all the world's products, meaning the containers that are more needed in China than in Africa, and the most of the containers are the biggest importers from China are Europe and USA.
Percent of all the world's products, and that simply means that containers are needed more in China than they are needed, let's say, in Africa. So all these
around January 2020, companies that were producing and manufacturing the boxes cancelled their orders, and that the containers are certified once a year, which meant scarcity had to increase.
In around January 2020, companies that were producing boxes, all were manufacturing these boxes, cancelled their orders. One of them was Triton with an order of about 40 million US dollars for empty containers. It cancelled these containers. These containers have certificates. They are certified once a year. So when COVID came in, these orders were cancelled. No one knew when COVID would end. So that simply means the scarcity had to increase. So that went on up to around a year.
Ayebare suggests as a landlocked country to invest more in agro-production and dependency on imports, and involving in the alternative methods of transportation like railway transport.
So solutions we can suggest as a landlocked developing country is dependency. We depend so much on imports than exports, and this now becomes a bit hard for us to dodge these issues, most especially when it comes to other countries being affected, and we find ourselves into the same situation. The first solution would be, being an agricultural country, to do agro-production, because 70% of the inputs in agro-production would be from our raw materials made from here. Then we can depend on 30% of the intermediaries. The effect would not be high like the reverse, because right now most of the inputs that we are 70% of what we are using as intermediaries for production are coming from the outside world. So we have not invested a lot into agro-production. Then the other solution would be, as a landlocked country, depending on our neighbors, we would develop from our neighbors. What services do they need? 3% of all the services that we import right now, we export right now, are logistics services. But we can provide up to 70% of the logistics services. But we need to look at investing in the alternative methods of transportation. For example, railway transport. Even intercity transport, using the water bodies we have for transport, so that we don't depend on fuel, the cost of production will then reduce. Because right now, if you look at the cost of delivering a bunch of matoke from the west to the north, it is half of the price of that bunch of matoke in the north. So at the end of the day, you realize that there's an internal logistics issue. So if we solve the internal logistics issues as a landlocked country, then we would find ourselves not depending so much on the imports. Those are some of the solutions that we would look at as a